Hey, Cardinal family, I wanted to do a callback to a concept I've talked about before and then ask you to engage in an exercise that I think could help us be more intentional about it, and that's that notion of observable engagement in the learning. Um, that's maybe as important to me as anything instructionally. Um, it's the thing I look for the most. It's the thing I maybe believe in the most that has the greatest impact on how our students engage with the content, how our students master the content, how we understand our students' engagement with the content. And again, observable engagement in the learning means that we need to have a learning target, a learning goal, and we need to see or hear our students engage with that learning goal in an observable way. That means we need to hear them speaking. We need to see them writing. We need to see them engaged in the act of creating a product. We need to see them engaged in some type of physical motion. That's kind of the four that I go back to again and again: speaking, writing, creating a product, physically moving. Those things equate to observable engagement in the learning. Now, if we don't have those, we are inferring engagement in the learning. When students are just sitting in their desks and they're quiet and compliant, and we are just delivering content, and we see those eyes and we see those ears, we get some of that anecdotal feedback, some feedback from our intuition, but we don't know. Now, not everything can be observable engagement in the learning every time. We don't have time for that, but it should happen consistently, regularly, frequently. Here's the exercise I want you to engage in that I think helps solicit some more observable engagement in the learning. I want you to think about something that you have, a unit, a lesson that you are going to be teaching soon. And I want you to think about, as you're speaking to your students, what are some yes or no questions that you are going to ask? What are some questions that are just recall and nothing else that you might just toss out there and say, hey, who knows? Um, because when we ask those kinds of questions, which we need to ask those kinds of questions sometimes, then we get some observable engagement in the learning. And we're not always sure where it's at. I was in a classroom not that long ago where a teacher asked a really good question, but it was just a yes or no question. And there were some murmurs throughout the class, some yeses, some nos, some not. So there was solicitation of observable engagement. The students did speak, but it wasn't really super clear who was engaged, who said what, who had it figured out, who didn't. Um, I want you to think about a yes or no question that you might throw out there, or a strictly recall question, and say, how can I change this up? How can I change this one question up so that it solicits observable engagement in learning? And there's lots of ways to do that. I'm going to give you a really simple one. I was at the high school yesterday, and I was talking with Dave, which a lot of you at the high school know Dave. He's been working on some professional development, was modeling some things, and he was talking about um, teaching a lesson about history. And he said, all right, I'm going to show you a video. In this video, there's going to be some Japanese planes and some American planes. When the video's done, I'm going to ask you to tell me some of the differences between the Japanese planes and the American planes. So what Dave could have done is just watch the video, shown the video, and then when he got done said, so what color were the American planes? Just recall. But when he sets that stage and says, hey, I'm going to show you this video, I'm going to ask you some differences between those two. Now we're way more analytical. We're doing some compare and contrast. We're setting the stage for the students to engage in some thought. And by the way, that's also a great time when you can say, all right, watch the video. I asked you to come up with some differences between those two planes. Turn and talk. Think about it. Now pair up and share. And during that time, as a teacher, you can be listening. You can use your proximity. You can walk around. You can, I don't know, check out some observable engagement in the learning because the students are speaking. Or if you want to say, hey, check it out before we do this, on your computer, on your notepad, I want you to write down 3 differences between the Japanese and American planes. There's some observable engagement. We can walk around and see that writing happen. Not everything can be observable engagement all the time. I know that. But my challenge to you, my exercise that I'm going to ask you to engage in, is just think about something that's coming up that hey, I'm going to ask this yes or no question. I usually ask this explicitly just recall question and think, how can I change that up so that we foster some more student engagement and specifically observable engagement in answering that question? Because the more often we do that and the more intentional we are about that, the more learning we're going to have happen. So, sorry to beat you over the head with observable engagement in the learning. It's kind of who I am. So, all right. Hey, this has been a weird week. They're all weird weeks, but it's been a good week. So keep up the good work. We're doing good things. Loved every classroom that I've been in. Love the opportunity to see what's going on. So keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. And I'll talk to you next time, Cardinal family.